owns credit. Oh my gosh. Man like Arthur from Batman.
Namaste, Dzień dobry, assalamu alaikum, ciao, konnichiwa, bonjour, hola, good morning, good morning, good morning. This is Ken at 10 on a very important day, the MPC meeting day. Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of England meet today at midday, and they decide on our fate, and that is interest rates. It's highly likely that they will raise rates by 0.25% or even as much as double that, 0.5%, due to persistent inflation. It does seem to me, though, is that the wise thing to do? I mean, the Bank of England are independent of government, so therefore the government, in a way, don't like this because obviously we've got an election coming up. It's awkward for them when rates are rising. This impacts them in a negative way. Labour, by the way, are calling on new rules for banks and building societies, and it's not a bad shout, actually. What they're saying is that they should compel lenders to allow borrowers to switch to interest-only deals. And I think that's quite a smart thing. And also to make sure that they can lengthen their mortgage period in order to lessen the impact of this terrible situation that we're in with interest rates. And they're also claiming that the credit records of those that do that shouldn't be impacted. I think they probably will, but it will be good to see that. I think that's a very good shout there from Labour. Not that I'm a particular fan of Labour or the Tories, come to that. But I do think that what's interesting about it at the moment is that on the one hand, they say we put up interest rates so that we can stop inflation. But here's the problem. You put up interest rates, and what happens to people that are landlords that have mortgages is that those mortgages go up. And then because those mortgages have gone up, they have to increase their rents to stay in the same position they were before that mortgage rate rise came along. So in fact, in some ways, these interest rate rises, while they're supposed to stall inflation, certain inflation goes up because of these interest rate rises. And I also think that the war in Ukraine is a big part of why we've got such a massive inflation. So it'd be interesting to see how it pans out. But I'm hoping today for a quarter point, and I'd love to say that it's possibly the last one. But yeah, tough times ahead. And banks have been accused of exploiting the rising interest rates. The reason for that is that the gap between the fixed rates and the actual base rate has widened on the one hand, but on the other hand, the savings rate, the difference between what the banks are actually quoting for savings, has not kept up with the way that they're impacting mortgage rates. So in other words, the banks are winning on both sides of this. They're winning because actually the fixed rates that they're using have a wider margin than the base rate on the one hand, and they're also winning because at the other end, they're not giving the full savings rate on to the investors. So one way or another, the banks are causing problems, but it's not entirely their fault, is it? It's the Bank of England, and what they're instructed to do, and their remit is to curb inflation and get it down to that 2% range. And it is nowhere near that at the moment. And it strikes me that it's probably going to trigger some sort of debt crisis in the UK over time. Certainly, we're going to see a larger number of repossessions. Do I think we're going to see mass repossessions? No. And the reason for that is, as I mentioned before, that nowadays we have more people on repayment mortgages, more people with larger deposits. 50% of the UK own their properties outright anyway, more than 50% actually, just over. So therefore, there are lots of people that are not impacted by the raising of interest rates on the one hand, and obviously their spending habits will go on as normal anyway. There are other people that are impacted in the way that it causes them to. For instance, if you're a landlord, increase rents and therefore inflation goes that way. And then there are other people who are mortgage holders and in a regular job, and therefore that does mean that they've got less disposable income, which should then put pressure on prices in a downward fashion, which is what it's all about, what they're hopeful of anyway. Apart from that beautiful day here in Norbury, we have a number of people talking to us about coming over to use our services for both sales and lettings. If you're one of those, or you haven't yet made the call, watched a few of my videos and you're just thinking, maybe I should chat to this guy, you're very welcome. This is what we do. It's what I'm here for. Do give me a call. The number's 0208 679 8601. And we're here for your business. And if you just want advice, also okay. I've just had a conversation with a landlord, lovely landlord, and it's just so the opposite from what you hear about landlords in the UK. She is in a situation where she's worried about increasing the rent for the tenants because she's worried about them, but also has rising costs like everybody else, and really did feel the pain of, should I do this? Shouldn't I increase the rate that I'm charging, given that it's fallen behind the curve, so to speak? And it's really, a lot of landlords are like that. They're really wrestling with their conscience. On the one hand, they want to protect themselves, But on the other hand, they don't want to force massive rent rises onto their tenants. And that's the vast majority of landlords. The vast majority of landlords in the UK, contrary to popular belief, are decent people that took a gutsy risk to rent out a property and made some money on it. And a lot of the jealousy that stems from that is one of the reasons why there's so much negativity towards landlords and why so many landlords are exiting the sector on top of the costs and everything else. So that's it for today. Hope you have a fantastic day and look after yourselves and your family if you can. We'll be back same time tomorrow. Until then, ciao.